We tend to think of learning as something that happens in a classroom, but often our most valuable lessons are much more subtle, sneaky even, in those moments when we think we're off the clock, when we're indulging in our hobbies and interests. We don't always realise it, but in these moments, we're building up the skills and foundations for our future selves, just by leaning into those impulses that are fun and interesting. My first classroom was in front of the TV, watching The Simpsons. When I was little, I watched The Simpsons every single night. No, I studied it. And every night, I'd have this little book with me. And whenever a new character appeared on the screen, I wrote down their name in alphabetical order. I was a pretty cool kid. I tried showing this to my friends once, this precious little database. They laughed at me. I guess it wasn't particularly groundbreaking research like I thought. The Australian Bureau of Statistics is yet to reach out to me for a copy of my hard work. But I spent months of my life on this thing, sorting my data, studying them, seeing what I could learn from them. Now here's the thing. Today, as an adult, I'm a mathematician and a data scientist. I work with huge data sets on fishing and biology, analysing them, looking for discrepancies, seeing what I can learn from them. And those skills that I developed as a strange little child, cataloguing cartoon characters, they've evolved into the skills that I use today to model wild fish populations, to protect our oceans, protect food security, protect people's livelihoods. So I wasn't wasting my time, I was practicing. So that's one of mine. What about you? What's your weird little hobby? That deep dive rabbit hole of research you fall into when you can't sleep? The sourdough that you perfected during lockdown? The small business idea that you meticulously planned out before life got in the way? Or the skill that you developed so obsessively that you forgot to stop and take a break to eat dinner or go to the bathroom? We tend to label these hobbies, special interests, hyperfixations as distractions, as side quests that distract us from our main quest. Maybe that's our job, our study, our relationships. But what if our side quest was actually the source of our very best skills? What if our side quest was actually our main story? When we're genuinely interested in something, our brain lights up. That spark of curiosity releases dopamine, which is a chemical that helps our brain stay focused, engaged, motivated. Now, this surge of dopamine doesn't just feel nice, it actually strengthens the brain's memory circuits, which means we can hold on to new information for longer. Now, I'm an autistic and ADHD woman, and for neurodivergent brains, such as mine, this process works a little bit differently. And by understanding these differences, we can rethink what curiosity really means to everybody. ADHD brains lack mental motivation. A 2011 study showed that ADHD brains typically have fewer dopamine receptors and transmitters compared to non-ADHD brains. The theory there is that ADHD brains are typically rewarded with, we don't get as much dopamine, so we're wired to seek out those new tasks and new experiences to get that extra hit, that boost. For autistic folks, specialised interests are actually one of the core characteristics used to define and diagnose the autism spectrum disorder. So when something finally captures our interest, our attention, maybe it's a new idea, a new song, a new person, a new shiny toy, it's satisfying. It scratches that itch inside our brain chemistry. Now, the benefits of motivated learning apply to everyone across the board. When we're motivated to learn something, we retain that information for longer, and we can apply that information across lots of different contexts. Let's take me as a case study to begin with. My job is to figure out how many fish are in the ocean. I do this so we can know if fishing laws need to be adjusted. I combine big data sets, mathematics, statistics, ecology, marine biology, computer programming. Now, with all of that in mind, let's take a step back in time through the history of my extracurricular obsessions that led me to this point in my career. We'll start with the Simpsons character book. That thing taught me about good record keeping and data management. A few years later, I got really into Harry Potter. So I started up a Harry Potter fan club at my school. I charged my friends 50 cents. They each got a free wand, and I promised to teach them some witchcraft and wizardry after school. I wasn't qualified for that. Through this, I learned about lesson planning, small business management. I even threw in a bit of web development from the early 2000s. Fast forward to my university days in my honours year. Still a big Harry Potter nerd, so I started up a Quidditch club on campus. Quidditch is that broomstick sport that Harry Potter plays. It was that, but in real life. Now, admittedly, this is a pretty big distraction from my studies, but I learned so many things. I learned about leading diverse groups of people, about writing grant applications for funding, talking to the media, event management from organising national sporting competitions. I even got a bit of experience as an executive board member, which I can put on my CV. These days, though, I am madly, wildly obsessed with fungi. Specifically, identifying and foraging for wild mushrooms. And it's tricky. You have to notice things. You have to notice details, notice patterns. And I've realised that since getting really into fungi, I'm better at noticing those details and patterns in fishing data back at work. I've joined my local mycological society, which is a group of fellow mushroom enthusiasts, and together we do field work. We go out, we record what we find, collect samples, look at them under microscopes, discuss their taxonomy, and contribute to scientific knowledge. Now, field work is a pretty important part of ecology, but it's not something I get to do in my day job. But by being really into mushrooms, I get to fill that gap in my experience, which just makes me a more well-rounded scientist overall. Having interests and hobbies like these can be all-consuming. It certainly comes with the territory of having a neurodivergent brain, or even more broadly, just a heightened interest in a topic. Now, these side quests can very quickly become the most important thing in your entire universe, to the point where the people around you are probably all a bit sick of you talking about them non-stop, or so I've been told. Now, I went to uni for a long time, and I studied very hard, but I think I studied even harder for each of my side quests. And at the time, I felt guilty. I felt a bit of shame, like I shouldn't be wasting this time and energy and effort on this unrelated, random thing. I should just focus on the task at hand, my study or my job. But now that I've taken a step back and looked at the big picture, I can see that all of my little side quests were making me a better scientist all along. But it's not just me, right? This is for all of us, everywhere. We each have these little things. My husband, Todd, for example, used to get in trouble at school for drawing pictures of frogs all through his school books. And now he's a very talented illustrator and graphic designer, and he specialises in illustrating animals and wildlife. Thanks, frogs. My friend Jody is a botanist who also teaches swing dancing classes in the evenings after work, just for fun. And through swing dancing, she has developed and honed her public speaking skills, which she then uses to lead her team of scientists back at work. In fact, you could argue that some of the greatest scientific breakthroughs in history come from unexpected side quests like these. Take Alexander Fleming, for example. He was studying bacteria and then went away on a holiday, a side quest from his day job. When he came back, he was cleaning out his messy desk and realised that one of the petri dishes he was working with was full of mould. Ugh, gross, chuck it out. Ugh. But he realised, looking closer, that the bacteria he was studying were not actually growing where that mold was. And that little observation sparked a curiosity, an aha moment, and he followed it. And from that observation came the discovery of penicillin, the world's first broadly effective antibiotic, credited for saving 500 million lives. Imagine if he'd not allowed himself to chase after that curiosity. If he thought, oh, no, it's contaminated, wasting my time, put it in the bin. No discovery, no medical revolution. Then, of course, we've got Charles Darwin. Now, Darwin's father wanted him to study a respectable career like medicine or the clergy. And so that's what Charles Darwin studied, although his true passion was nature. One day, Charles Darwin was offered the ultimate side quest, a round-the-world trip on the HMS Beagle as the ship's naturalist. Incredible. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, right? Amazing. And his father said no. He said it would be disreputable to his career as a clergyman, that the accommodations would be uncomfortable, it was a wild scheme and a useless undertaking. His words. And Charles Darwin was pretty much talked out of it, until his uncle, thankfully, stepped in and convinced him to go along. Now, while he was on that voyage of the Beagle, Charles Darwin, who was a complete amateur, by the way, took meticulous notes on the plants and animals and fossils that they found on their journey. And from this adventure came the ideas that reshaped what we know of life itself, evolution by natural selection. Charles Darwin couldn't have done that research if he was convinced that it was a waste of time. When we zoom out, we can see the bigger picture. Following side quests, following passions, following curiosity. These little detours in our lives build us up with toolkits that contain unexpected tools. And when we let ourselves lean into them without the guilt, powerful things can happen. But it runs even deeper. See, these quirks connect us. These side quests are not just standalone hobbies. They're deeply interconnected with the skills, knowledge, and creativity that we carry with us through our lives everywhere, both at home and at work. They allow us to contribute more effectively to society, to our teams and communities, because we can pull together these threads from seemingly unrelated, irrelevant areas of life and the world. And if we're feeling brave, let's take it a step further. Let's unmask. Let's stop trying to hide these quirks that are so core to our identity. Let's stop worrying that people will think we're a bit weird or a bit nerdy. Be weird. Be nerdy. Let's stop siloing off parts of ourselves depending on where we are. You should be you everywhere. You should be able to integrate all of the parts of yourself into all of the parts of your life. When we open up on these quirks to the people around us, we show up as our authentic selves. And that lets those around us show up as their authentic selves too. And that is when you can really connect to the people around you. So, I think it's time we start to rethink this. Instead of wasting time, call it practicing. Instead of distracted, call it a specialized focus. Instead of a pointless hobby, call it a training ground for transferable skills. And instead of guilt, acknowledge that you're allowing yourself to be your authentic, creative self. Because the research says when we're supported to engage in our interests, we thrive. So, parents, when your kid is obsessed with Lego or dinosaurs, ask them what they've discovered. Educators, if your students are only interested in some complete other topic, think about how you could weave that into your daily lessons. Bosses, notice and embrace your employees' quirks, because they might contain the solutions and those innovations that we just can't see from our perspective. And if you are someone with these hyperfixations yourself, Give yourself permission. Think about your passions, about the things you actually want to spend your time on. What transferable skills is your side quest teaching you? How is it making you a more well-rounded person? How can you bring the joy and the fun from that side quest into the other, more boring parts of life? Remember, you're not procrastinating, you're practicing. Practicing persistence, practicing creativity, and practicing the very skills that might one day change your life, or even the world. Thank you.